Hey, Scarlett.
Welcome back, guys. You're listening to StyleOverSubstance.
We're just two friends talking about our experiences working inside the fashion industry and also our observations from outside the fashion industry. It's sometimes serious, but it's definitely always a good laugh.
Always. We release new episodes every Tuesday.
So subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platforms.
Hey!
Hello.
We're trying something different.
Yeah, I know. We're professionals.
We're professionals. It's about time. We're about to hit 100 in the next 5-6 episodes. So it's about time.
But it is. I mean, it's been a learning curve, to say the least. And hopefully this goes to plan and it looks good and it's entertaining. And I think it will be better because what I've always thought is because we know each other so well, when we're in discussion, I think some of the meaning doesn't really come across unless we're on video or people can see us.
So these are our mugs. For the visual people. For everyone else, hopefully the sound's a little bit better, but also it's kind of no different.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, I don't have anything to drink this evening.
So I do, because I need to toast to my niece being born today.
Yeah, congrats.
So I will be getting crunk after this.
Are you going to see her?
What's your fashion story?
The sales of underwire bras over the past couple of years has gone down. And so the company Bravissimo has reported a 30% drop in revenue in October of 2020, which is massive. Mm-hmm. And then it says in general, in 2020 from April through to June, bra sales alone seeing a 16% decrease. And I was thinking, we never really had an in-depth discussion about bras. We spoke a lot
about elasticated clothing and athleisure, but we didn't talk about the fact that we don't want that underwire.
I know. And it's such a massive part about feminine or effeminate clothing. It underpins everything.
Yeah.
And how everything looks on you when you talk about clothes. And I'm not surprised that people have kind of ditched bras in general and also underwire bras. I don't know if it's here to stay. What do you think? Do you think people are going to return to their old ways?
So I have, but
what, you've returned to an
I've returned to the underwire. It took me a long time, I'm going to be honest. I'm someone, I sort of live in if I'm just in the house, I would just have a sports bra on or a Calvin Klein bralette on or something like that.
Yeah.
But day to day, I've readjusted. I think it took me 3 months, if not more, and I think it took going into the office a bit more and having just to have no choice but to sit with it. I definitely now have my comfier day bras still that I'm gonna have use for an 8-hour slog. But I have returned them. I really like underwear. You and we both really like our underwear. I wear underwear because I like it. I don't as well as the fact that it's practical and it gives my boobs a nice shape and all of that stuff. So but I totally understand that feeling and that meme and all the thing of that moment when you take your bra off and
it's like that. Have you seen the fern? And it's
so I get it. And I just think also we're just dressing different. Everything's different. Our attitude is different. If we haven't returned to a 5-day working week, why should everything else return the same? We've got a different level of I don't know, appreciation for what the comfort in life could be.
Yeah. Well, full disclosure, we still work 5 days a week. We just, not in the office. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, when it was locked down, for me, I went weeks without a bra.
Yeah.
Like, I was just wearing t-shirts.
And there's like a study, isn't there? And it's I think it's a wives' tale, and I don't think it's founded. But there's different studies that say that actually not wearing a bra improves elasticity in your boobs. It's not founded, like,
Yeah, but then there used to be that, like, idea that if you don't wear one, then they'll sag even more.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's either or. Like, you've heard that if you support them, it prevents gravity a bit more, but then also, if you don't wear one, actually they naturally lift.
Yeah, I think it's
just comfortable.
They're going to sag with age, yeah? And not really down to whether you wear a bra or not, I think. But, yeah, I haven't... As you said, like, we both love underwear. We've got quite expensive underwear as well. Yeah. And I haven't bought underwear in such a long time because... Well, I bought knickers, but, like, no bras really at all, because I kind of feel like... If I can get away with not wearing one, I will. And secondly, I have enough to last me for a good while. I don't need to add to the collection. So, yeah, I think you're right. Like, sports bras, Calvin Klein kind of sets or, like, bralettes things is what everyone's going for. But I think those figures of, like, 30% down is massive.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge, yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
What is your fashion story?
So my fashion story is, I don't know if you've been following Bow Babe, Deborah James. Quite a high profile. She used to do the podcast You Mean the Big C, and she's a lady who's currently dying of bowel cancer.
Yeah.
But she had in the works a range within the style. And so she set up a fund when she found out that she was moving to hospice care. The Bow Babe Fund, and part of then her In the Style range got expedited forward so that she could see some of the benefit and see people's reactions. And she did a t-shirt that says Rebellious Hope, and that's how she tried to live with cancer, is having like a rebellious hope that things can be better, or like you need something, don't you, to get you through the day. And I bought one of these t-shirts, and I think all of the profits basically went towards charity. I think it was a minimum of £3 per t-shirt, and I think they've raised something like £500,000 for the fund.
That's really cool.
And I just thought, we give these websites, and funnily enough, we're going to talk about one today, a lot of shit. Yeah. And In the Style is no different. To me, that is like a boohoo.com. That is a great little thing. It's the same difference, it's probably from the same factory, but I just thought the fact that they've used their platform for good, and granted, of course, like, they're going to get something. They got great publicity out of it. It's nothing off their nose. But yeah, I just thought that was really, really cool, and it was really impressive to see.
Yeah, I think it is really heartwarming and good for them to have like the forethought to like pull everything forward so that she can kind of have her moment and see this is one of her, sadly, like her big projects, one of the last ones she will get to do. So yeah, I think it is a nice touch. And it's weird, isn't it, because we sit here and we criticize all these brands all the time, and we recognise there is a very thin line between fast fashion and ethical fashion and all of that, and it's a very tricky discussion in the world of the fashion industry. Then you can also kind of like think, they're just doing this to like make them look better. But at the same time, I want these t-shirts to sell and fund money for a really good cause and to support her as a person. So you feel a bit conflicted, don't you?
Yeah, and I had to download their app to buy one and, you know, like all of this stuff. And she had a range as well. And I kind of couldn't bring myself to want to support that range.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's that careful thing, right, of we have this with influencers just generally. They're not buying something just for the sake of it, to own something because of it. And I know this is for a better cause, but I donated to her fund and I've bought this t-shirt and I'm sure I will donate like in the future or whatever, to various things. But I just, yeah, it's them doing a good thing. And you know what, maybe they had the foresight as well. Apparently it was like 6 months in the making, this collection, but maybe they had the foresight of what was happening to their good old friend that we're discussing later, to know like shit's hitting the fan if we don't start doing certain like special projects, or if we don't like buck up and show that we're more than just fast fashion.
Yes.
Like we might not be here for much longer.
We interrupt this broadcast to say, go follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @StyleOverSubstance pod. There you'll find our weekly fashion topics, all the stuff that we discuss in each episode, and our polls.
Or reach out to us at StyleOverSubstancePodcast@gmail.com for new suggestions of topic discussions, or even to share your own fashion stories. We also have a YouTube channel, Style Over Substance Podcast, if you'd rather listen to our episodes over there.
Back to the episode.
And that is a good segue into this week's topic, because this week it was announced. This week? Last week was announced.
I think it was last week.
That our bestie, Missguided, had gone into administration essentially and was on its last legs. And then all of a sudden, the Fraser Group, owned by Mr. Sports Direct, has bought it. And that came right after the news. And I'm not saying they're linked, but it's all part of a wider discussion. It came after the news that Love Island was ditching all of its fast fashion kind of sponsors. So things like In The Style, Boohoo, Missguided, all these other ones that crop up year after year, that essentially sell the same kind of party wear. They ditched their links to fast fashion in favour of linking up with eBay. And we talked about it and we kind of sang its praises and said it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of shocked about this. And actually, the way I found out about this news was from our friend to the pod and former guest, Epiphany. And she posted about how Missguided was in trouble, and that's kind of like speared us to do a little bit of digging. So I say all that to say this is this week's episode.
Yeah, so they were reportedly millions in debt.
Okay.
And so I guess for a bit of context, we obviously know that famously Topshop has recently gone under, and I can't remember if that was this side of the pandemic or in the middle or when it landed.
No. Oh my god, a bag fell.
Got too many.
That really shook me.
But anyway, these companies had just about survived the pandemic. Missguided had, and fast fashion was becoming relevant again. And like, let's be honest, the people who did it before are still doing it now, and there's more. People aren't turning down plans. Like one of my work colleagues, he is out every weekend, like killing himself because I think he's just so happy that the pandemic is over.
Yeah.
He's just like, my liver's not happy, like whatever, but
living his best life.
But life is for living. And so like 100%, there are girls out there buying into their fast fashion and just we've also just gone back to our old ways, as humans do, and we don't look back, we just keep going. So it's a real surprise that Missguided, of all of the websites, because like you said, or we were saying, for me they're interchangeable.
Yeah.
Like, why Missguided? And Missguided was huge. Like, they had their little weird little premium collection, they had sports, they'd sell makeup bits on there, like, it was everything. And so, like, the fact that it's not in the style, I know obviously Pretty Little Thing with Molly May now, like, that's probably not in danger, but, like, it's not Boohoo, it's not Shein, or however you say it, it's, I don't know, Nasty Gal, or whatever it is.
Well, Nasty Gal went under, didn't they? And then they got bought.
So Nasty Gal used to be an expensive website, and then they rebranded as fast fashion.
Yes.
They used to be really expensive. I used to not be able to afford to shop on there, and I remember influencers telling me about it and being like, can't afford that website.
Yeah, because they did the kind of vintage inspired, I think they probably, vintage inspired, which they kind of do now, but they do it in a much cheaper way than they did it before. But yeah, I remember that. Things are getting back to normal and we are going out. We're not like going on holiday as much, partly because chaos at the airports and with these airlines, which is physically stopping us from leaving the country when we plan to. But I think we're just getting back to like travel and booking holiday plans and things. And maybe everyone's buying their holiday looks and returning them now because they can't go anywhere, they can't do jack shit abroad. And that is essentially what Missguided is there for. It's like cute throwaway holiday looks. But yeah, I was surprised as well because remember during lockdown and everything, there was this phenomena going on where these online focused fast fashion businesses were making a killing. Yeah, there was this really crazy phenomena during the pandemic where none of us were going anywhere. But these companies, which were, you know, fast fashion companies, which were like online focused, were making a killing because they had the advantage of being able, like, you were able to shop them throughout the whole pandemic, have things delivered. And so all those, like, companies like maybe Next or whatever, that is, like, more a high street thing, they were missing out. And people were just buying online as if, like, they had places to go.
Because they were planning for the future, the post-pandemic world, those holidays, like that aspirational fashion that we talked about. Like we were planning, like, and like think when I think I'm saying Asos because that's where I shop. I don't shop on these other websites. But when it was like Freedom Day, and then there's like the Freedom Day edit, and then it's 20% off for Freedom Day, like all of this shit. So, like, Missguided was part of that, and yeah, I don't know how it got so bad.
It must be like mismanagement. And from what I've kind of read on like The Guardian and whatnot, they kind of hint at that because when you're making so much money and your brand is so ubiquitous for like really young millennials and like Gen Z, and that's your demographic, I just don't see how you can go from being like a big household name to like going into liquidation in such a short, I don't know.
But that's what happened with Topshop, right? Is we obviously just didn't get the full picture. And then we just suddenly got told when it was clearly too late, and either investors or management have just declared like, this isn't salvageable. We've got too many debts. We've got too many debtors. Like all of this stuff, like the jig is up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of mad that it's a differential. But also, so what now has been coming to light as well is that loads of customers just hadn't been receiving their orders. Their returns hadn't been processed. That's like all this like stuff going on. So they're being sloppy even in the face of this. So like, have they already let workers go? Like, how does that work? And then it got bought for so cheap by Sports Direct. 25 mil. Like, that is chump change for the fact that, like, you know.
Yeah, so.
Like, let's be honest, Molly May is probably earning what? Like £1 million a year from Pretty Little Thing?
Yeah.
So like 25 mil to buy Missguided is mental. Like that is really so cheap.
The thing is, Sports Direct don't buy what we would understand to be the whole business. They tend to buy the license so that they can trade under that name, and they like buy the stock and they kind of, I think they try to buy as little as possible. They do that with was it actually Boohoo.com that bought Warehouse? Yeah, they literally just bought the name.
Yeah.
Operate it under a new website. It's website only. There's no Warehouse stores anymore. And it really does feel like fast fashion, whereas before it kind of felt a little bit premium high street, a bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. And the reason why I believe they saw this coming is because they had debts, and you've got debts. It's no surprise. It creeps up onto you like quite slowly. And they knew that they wouldn't be able to fulfill orders, I think, because say they've placed an order for 1 million units of a bikini top. If they're not going to pay, then their suppliers are going to start withholding, supplies and orders and all of that. They're going to kind of hold the stock hostage. And the people are going to like continue to order. And I think that's what's happened. They've kind of promised things that they can't pay for and can't back up. And as a result, they've taken people's money, but there's no way of actually fulfilling these orders. And I think that's criminal.
For sure. But this is the issue, right? With the fast fashion model. And the fashion model, I think, I mean, if you're a long time listener, I described this before at somewhere I've worked, where if you grow really fast, you then have to hire really fast, and then you have to buy so much more fabric, and you have to everything is massive. And then as that dwindles, you don't immediately get rid of all that staff, because you kind of think it's going to pick back up, and you kind of think, I'll keep the orders as they are. And if it then just doesn't keep picking up, and so you're sort of like, oh, we owe people because, we actually didn't do that, and we keep owing. Yeah. And then you get yourself in this position, but because you had that name at one point of having 10,000 orders, it's like you probably thought you were good for it and all of this stuff. So yeah, the fashion model's really tricky. There's a reason that none of the companies I've worked for previously exist anymore. Fashion is a tough game, and it is so fickle. And I read that Asos and Boohoo were in the running or in talks of buying them out too. But Asos is not doing well. Yeah. It can't be. Over the last, I think, 3 weeks, it has had 20% off at least 5 times. And it had it for the whole a whole weekend. It then had it in just run up for the bank holiday. It just does something like a random evening. And that is not a brand that's doing well. It used to be gold dust to have your student card or to get any form of a discount on there. So that just shows how tough this game is. And it's ASOS is one of the most famous websites now in the world for fashion.
Yeah. I remember about 3 years ago, or maybe a bit more than that, when I was working at a previous brand, and one of my colleagues knew people who worked at ASOS, and loads of them were getting let go. And this was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Loads of people were losing their jobs there, and it was really quite unstable. If you'd recently joined, it could have been a situation for you where you were last in, first out. And so I remember thinking to myself, don't apply for jobs there, or don't interview there, because it's a little bit fickle at the moment. And so, I think ASOS has probably struggled for a while. When we were at uni, ASOS was hot shit. And you would buy
that discount code meant so much. Yeah. Your friends that had left uni the year before were coming.
Oh my god, my mum's a lecturer, so she has a uni email address, and me and my sister would just even after we'd left uni, we would still be uni
so precious. They only ever had sales. They never just did a random 20% off. And like, it's madness now because I won't shop on there until there's a 20% off, because I know there's going to be one around the corner. So I don't now shop on there until there's that, which is bonkers that I know. Like, even so, I've mentioned it on here that I'm training for the marathon. I'm not going to buy running shoes for full price if I can get 20% off on Asos.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
do you think that pricing and this perpetual sale that we see not just at Asos, but we see at Boohoo, Missguided, Warehouse now because they're owned by Boohoo, and all these other fast fashion brands are the reason why they're kind of going through a tumultuous time? Because if we compare it to Zara, now I don't know Zara's financials, yeah, but from what I've never heard, the Zara struggle financially, and they never have sales. They have a summer sale and they have a winter sale, and sometimes they throw things in what they call special prices, but it's like you know they've made it to be,
they've made too many and they've intentionally done it,
and they've intentionally made it so that it's going to be at a lower price point. But I mean, you don't get discount codes there, you don't get birthday,
and really interestingly, they've not joined Klarna. And it's one of the few retail outlets that I've noticed who haven't. And I think that speaks volumes too.
Yeah.
Because I think that is a symbol of that sort of... And don't get me wrong, like there are high-end brands who use that. But that's also because they're trying to get people like us to be able to afford them. Yeah. So I think that's quite interesting in Zara's business model that they haven't used that.
I think 100%.
Right. I think this discount culture is a part of it. Because... like, look at Asos. I'm not going to buy anything full price from there ever. So, like, you know, that's not great. Why does Nike want to give them their shoes? Because I'm never going to buy them now off Nike's website. I'm only ever going to buy them off Asos at a discount. And surely it hits Nike or whatever. Like, surely that's an impact when they have to give their figures back. Oh, 98% of our customers only bought it when we had our 20% off day. So that's never going to come to your website, or like, I don't know. Those figures aren't great, are they?
And it is a race to the bottom when most places are offering sale after sale after. Like, if it's not on sale at one place, it's on sale somewhere else. And because places like Missguided sell such generic stuff, it's not like you're looking for that Louis Vuitton specific pair of trainers that they sell, what are they called, the something lights, you know, with the swerve heel, in a particular colorway, and there's a product code and you're Googling that product code because that's the one you want. And you're just trying to find if it's in stock in your size. You're not even trying to look for a discount necessarily. I mean, you might go on pre-sale and whatnot, but it's not like that. It's like their stuff is relatively interchangeable, and so
that's why it's bonkers, right? 100%. So for people who don't know and haven't listened to previous episodes, a fast fashion model, they very rarely have in-house designers that are designing the generic dresses. You buy these designs from like a catalogue, basically from a factory. There's also a very generic like fabric pool. That's why you can find the same fabric at like River Island as you can find on Missguided, as you can find on their Style. Like, they do have, like, they don't have unique fabrics. To have your own unique fabric is expensive. Someone creates a floral pattern, they buy a bit. Like, that's why we see the same designs, the same shapes, the same patterns other places. So the fact that one place hasn't done it as well as the others, the only place you can look is management. The only place you can look is the business model. And also, at one point, in my opinion, they were the top. They were bigger than Pretty Little Thing. They were bigger than In The Style. They were bigger than Boohoo. I knew so many girls that shopped at Missguided. And they had, like, they kind of were second to Asos and doing that premiere delivery. And, like, they were big on, like, festival fashion. Like, they did, like, loads of stuff for Halloween. They really bought into the times that they knew that we'd go looking for these fast fashion moments.
For sure. Do you think that our attitude towards overconsumption has played any role into this? Me personally, I don't think so. I think it's worth broaching the question, but I think that we are not nearly as green as we'd like to think we are. I don't think we really fundamentally have changed our attitudes to shopping. We've discussed before, like, we as a society, we kind of treat luxury fashion like fast fashion. So if we're doing that with things that's like £1,000 a piece, I don't really think as a collective we've gotten significantly better, and we're in our droves like moving away from fast fashion, and that is why we're seeing collapse in like one of the biggest names in the UK.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I read an article that was basically implying, or someone was implying, that they thought that was a reason, and I just don't think that's a thing. I just think that the reality is, first of all, the cost of living's gone up so much, so this is the time for fast fashion to fly if it's gonna, you know? Like, even if you have an ethical standpoint, like, I could, like, groceries and all food things and heating and electricity, like, literally essentials in life, food, warm, your house over your head, have gone up so much that if you ever were going to be like, I need that ethical cotton t-shirt, it's going to wait. It's going to wait. Yeah, your £50 eco t-shirt is going to wait. Yeah. So I don't know if it's that. And I think you're right. I think we kid ourselves to think, you know, that we're ethical. And like, I'm someone who does Veganuary in January. It's a challenge to me, and it's more like I'm aware that the world is moving towards a more vegan lifestyle. Is that me being, you know, do I think that's me doing my bit for like the year? No, it's not. I'm not vegan. But like, some people would kid themselves into thinking that that's them being green or they're doing their bit. And I think people don't really know their impact, or ignorant of their impact. I find it very interesting that Love Island starts tonight as of recording. And like, a fast fashion brand has gone under the same sort of season that they've neglected or they've pushed away fast fashion. But
there's no correlation. Really, I think that Love Island saw the backlash that Molly May's been getting for the past year, and British Fashion Council were getting for last fashion season, in accepting a fast fashion rip-off brand to show during the week. They weren't part of the official calendar, but they were kind of loosely tied to British Fashion Council. And anyway, I think that Love Island kind of saw that backlash, and they thought it's probably time for us to revamp ourselves. I mean, Love Island have done other things to revamp itself, so I think it's part of that, and not because they saw this coming, or it's anyway linked to Missguided, you know, demise or whatever. I think it's just a coincidence.
For sure. But I do think, what I do think it is I think that it's a warning. I think it's a warning for fashion. Companies in general, that, you know, it was as high as it could be at one point, and I think it just shows how fickle the industry is, and it's just that reminder alongside, you know, alongside hang on,
I think you can mute it.
Alongside the fact that Topshop went, how many high street stores have had to be bought out by larger conglomerates? I think it just shows how weak, you know, our stores are right now. And I think it's just a warning for the business model. I think it's, I don't know what I would do if I was a brand like in the style right now. Like Pretty Little Thing's done their thing with Molly May, like good for them, that's foresight. They basically got her loyal legion of followers who are going to buy stuff. And In the Style has that with loads of different celebs. They've got Jack Josser, who won I'm a Celeb a few years ago, who does like a big like thing for more plus size women. They get loads of sort of celebrity like Towie-esque people to do a bit of a range. But it just shows it can go really fast. Like it goes downhill really quick. And also I wouldn't mind betting that even Lydia Millen, an influencer, does a range for Karen Millen.
Yeah.
I bet her first one was sort of a sellout. Her second one probably as well. Her third maybe 90%. Her fourth 80%. After a while, you're not going to keep buying it because, first of all, that stuff is expensive, but also it wears off.
Yeah, you're not going to continue buying her collections because, from what I see, she's not a designer in the sense that every season she's bringing out something really fresh. As you said, like the first collection she has, you're buying it maybe to support her or because you want to buy into her look. And then after a while, you are going to think twice about continuing to buy into her collection at least.
Yeah, the novelty wears off. The fact that impulse as well. So like, I try not to have that impulse when it comes to influencer collections, and you're much better at it. But the first one, you're a bit like, oh, I want something, this is cool. Yeah. But by sort of the fourth or fifth, you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you've already got something, and so you're like, I'll give this one a miss. Or you start questioning it more and going, do I actually like that? Or like, I don't know, because I think certain collections and certain things, you can feel that pull of, this is new and I want to be a part of this. Like, think of Yeezys. I don't think they sell out all the time now. I haven't seen reports of that for a long time.
I don't think Yeezy releases a lot of, like, in terms of quantity of pieces. So I think they probably do sell out, but it's because it's manufactured sellout to some extent.
But you know what I mean? Like the first few, it was like everyone was waiting with like bated breath, like drop, like, you know, get on their website like it was concert tickets. And I think after time you're sort of a bit like, I'm a bit bored of doing this. Like these things wear off. We're sort of creatures that we just get desensitized to it a little bit. Like
I think what's interesting,
what Direct really going to do with Missguided?
I don't know, but I think what's interesting in regards to what's happening with Missguided is that we kind of thought that online fashion brands, especially the big ones, not the start-up small brands, but the big ones were infallible. That they don't have the overhead costs of being on the high street. They don't have the overhead costs of like having lots of store staff. And all that running cost that comes with like brick and mortar, they don't have that. They're simply online, and they don't have like business rates. They like have corporation tax and whatnot, and get taxed on their profit. But it's not as expensive as say how Topshop was operating. I think we've lived through a period of all of those like big high street names that we grew up with have all kind of now disappeared. They either no longer exist or they've been bought out by other companies, bigger ones, and just been like dissolved. I think this is the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, that one online fashion brand has been bought by a bigger company because it's gone into administration. Normally it's like, okay, we brought up the example of Warehouse. Warehouse was a high street store. Oasis, a high street store. And all these other brands. And I just see how, like, if an online only can go under like this, what are the other ones that could go under? Is it the start of a trend? I don't actually know, to be honest, but yeah, it's like a shift, isn't it?
That's a really interesting point, because we used to associate it with the high street. It used to be the high street struggling, the high street's not doing well, the high street this, the high street that. And maybe it's not the high street, and maybe it is just fashion is the main business we consume as an everyday person. Like, hairdressers come and go. Like, would we really be that phased if our hairdressers sort of disappeared because they're going to go to a different salon? Like, of course, like,
loyal to their hairdresser.
I mean, I haven't found one, so maybe I'm the wrong person to ask. Or like your optician moves, like all of that stuff, like those things don't last, but also somehow they just have endless like pots of money or whatever these businesses. But I feel like fashion is that model where we all are a part of it. Like Meryl Streep said, whether you like it or not, you're part of fashion. And I think it's the thing that we most see is not doing well. I mean, even think like John Lewis, such a household name. In my old age, that's where I go for most things. Like, I'll look and see, like, maybe I don't buy it from there, but I just kind of know that it's like the Asos of homeware.
Yeah.
You know, and all of that stuff, and we all want an easy life. So the fact that these websites and these shops aren't doing well, where are you getting your stuff from? China? Amazon? Like, where are people buying stuff from?
I think maybe people are just buying into smaller brands. Or what's going to happen, I think, is that we are just going to be buying from the same 3 companies. There'll be lots of brands in existence, but they'll all be owned by the same conglomerate.
Which is really dangerous.
It is. I mean, we see it with the newspaper and news industry. It's all owned by like 2 rich guys, you know. We see it in luxury fashion already, where we have LVMH and Kering, and then we have Capri Holdings or something, which is like Michael Kors, and then Prada Group. And I think they're probably the biggest 4 that own like all the biggest names in fashion. And so that's already been going on for a couple decades now. And they've all just like, not banded together, they've all been bought out to make their conglomerate even stronger, so they can all weather the storm together and enjoy the highs together. Yeah. And I think all of that consolidation is now happening at like a lower level of fashion, perhaps. As you said, like, you've worked for brands that are no longer in existence. That there are lots of high street brands that have gone over and been bought, and maybe it's the same fate.
Yeah, you know what this makes me think of? And like, weird link, but last night I watched the like I am father, or I am your father, or whatever, the thing from Netflix, where it's basically about the gynecologist, birth specialist.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's harmful, the fact that he has, you know, created that many children in a 25-mile radius. But I actually think this can be used for fashion. It is so harmful if the same company owns all of it. Like, that's not appropriate, and that doesn't work well for our ecosystem, that doesn't work well for our economy. Like, we thrive if there are many people involved. And, you know, humanity too. You don't want incestuous relationships. Like,
yeah.
Fashion, there needs to be more people in the game, and I don't know how we create a better business model. And I think that's what this says to me. The business model for fashion is hard. Someone needs to help these companies out, and I don't know who that person is, because maybe no one's got the perfect model. Because like you said, like LVMH has bought out loads of companies and they rest on the laurels of Louis V. And the Prada Group has like rescued people, like things, whatever. And like Chanel, like, let's be honest, like, that's not a business model. It's just the biggest success story, you know? And I don't know, it's really tough. Like, how do you create a safer world for fashion brands?
Well, the idea in like our economy is that we're not supposed to have monopolies. Like, that is kind of, we're all aware that can bring about some really dangerous practices. And when you were talking, I was thinking about the report that came out 1 or 2 years ago in regards to Boohoo, and the fact that in the UK, you know, slave labour, basically underpaying people, was happening. And very often we think, oh, that's something that happens in countries in, you know, Asia or, you know, other places in the world where maybe labour laws aren't as strong. Well, no, we realised that was happening in our own backyard, where we'd like to think, you know, workers have some sort of like rights. And it makes me think that if the same one fast fashion brand owns, you know, the top 7 biggest, most successful fashion brands there are, then all those people who work and create these garments are going to have less strength and less buying power to kind of advocate for themselves and demand better working conditions and demand better pay. Because it's like, I can't leave this job because who else is going to employ me? I'm just going to go to a different brand that's owned by the same people and expect the same treatment. So I think this, like, monopolies in general is really dangerous. And I think if we want like a fashion industry that's going to thrive, we have to encourage small brands, larger brands, middle-sized brands, all owned by different people, different types of people from across the country, and not just like, concentrated in like the Midlands. But yeah, and it also makes me think about Missguided as a British company. There's a lot of like big name British brands like Burberry, Alexander McQueen and whatnot, and they're not as big or as like popular or like in the fashion zeitgeist as like Gucci or like LV or, you know, Prada. And it makes me think, like, is this the sort of, I don't know, is this a good legacy for like British fashion in general?
That's really interesting, actually, that you said like we took Burberry production offshore, but we have to our name fast fashion, and it's here in Leicester still, and it gets manufactured. Like, that's not a British legacy. Like, come on, we used to be known for such innovative and such amazing production of quality garments, and we just kind of have like, I don't know, just joined this fast money, quick turnaround thing. And I think it's funny because you can't do that with cars. You can't do that with other things. I mean, I bet they wish they could, but they're not safe. So, I don't know, that's really sad, isn't it? It's the British legacy, just some terrible fast fashion.
I know.
No! We have like heritage, and we, like, you know, we've got amazing stuff, but it's all left offshore, and it's all, yeah.
The thing is that Mr. Sports Direct, Ashley something Ashley, you know who I'm talking about, him. He's just like buying up everything, and I don't know, as long as he's like,
how's Sports Direct still going?
You know what? I've got some gym shorts on right now that I bought from.
Like, trust me, I've bought stuff from there. But again, like, I'd bought stuff from Missguided before for Halloween. I bought stuff from Topshop. That doesn't exist. How's Sports Direct still going?
Well, he's a crook, isn't he? So, well, I don't know what sort of financial practices are going on over there, but I know for sure they're dodgy. I don't know, but I don't think really, and this sounds really depressing, I don't really think that we're anywhere close to reviving British fashion legacy. It's, you know, when you think of British fashion, yeah, we can think of Burberry and we can think of Savile Row and all of that stuff, but very few people have the privilege to afford things at Savile Row. Burberry sells a lot of stuff in outlet. You know, and it's not when you think of like heritage, I think especially British heritage, it can feel very exclusionary and dated. And it's not to say that I don't love these brands and like Savile Row, the craftsmanship of Savile Row and stuff, but it's not something that is going to connect with a lot of people, you know? It's not the first thing that people are going to be like, that's what I'm going to buy when I make a bit more money, or when I get that promotion or whatever. You know, people nowadays, for the most part, all we can do is afford fast fashion. And as you said right at the beginning, it says something when even those brands aren't doing well.
Yeah, it's worrying, isn't it? I don't know what we do, and like, don't get me wrong, I don't think their business model is great, because it's monopolizing off of not paying people well and not charging much for clothes. Like, none of that is great. And that's not a long term. Like, I'm a big believer, if you start a company, you're playing the long game, right? You might not get that many customers through your door on the first day if you price fairly and pay people fairly and all of that stuff. But maybe in 100 years, it's still there and it means something because you did it right from the start. Whereas if you cut corners, this is like a lesson my dad taught me when he used to be in business, is like, you don't want to do something for a quick buck. You don't want to do something for a quick few quid, because then they're not going to come back, because they're going to at some point realise that you pulled the wool over their eyes. So you want to be fair, and in the end that pays off, because they come back to you because they know that you were fair and like la 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 la. And so I think these companies are just like greedy, and so at some point, and they probably don't pay their staff well, let's be honest, it's fashion. So like, you know, but they should really value their customers. Like, that's what's really pissed me off in all of this. It, like, granted, I've been treated like shit as a staff member in a fashion company, but if I bought something from your website, I don't care if you've gone under. If you've taken my money, I want my product.
Or your refund.
Or a refund. It's as simple as, and like, keep someone in the accounts department so they give it to me. Like, it's not that hard, surely.
No, because their money's gone other places. I think what your dad said was really admirable and honourable, and I think it's the right way to do things, especially when you're more of like a small to medium business. I think that like the way you treat your customers is far more personal and really does require that level of integrity. The problem is that when you are so massive, even the fact that this has happened to a lot of customers, and they won't get the product, and they might not get the money back unless they pay through credit card or like PayPal or something like that. Those who either didn't buy from Missguided, if Missguided was then to make a big comeback, they're probably still going to buy into the brand because they weren't affected personally, and they're not going to feel that. They're not going to feel begrudged by this company and think, oh, fuck them, I'm not spending my money with them ever again. They're not going to feel that. So these big companies have far more scope of making a really good comeback. And there's a lot of customers out there who will forget. They will forget the poor treatment of workers and the underpaying of people and the massive deforestation and all of that. And it, like, I don't say that to be like an absolute saint.
To be facetious.
Yeah, it's like, I buy fast fashion, and I think all safely say everyone, most people can do like an ignorance thing, like, oh, it's not that bad, I'm just going to pretend like it's not that bad.
It's only one or two things.
You continue to buy into it because
because I can't afford the other stuff. Yeah, like, we will have an excuse.
Yeah, you make excuses for yourself, don't you? So,
but we buy free range eggs, right? Because we decided that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And at some point, there was a universal, we buy free range eggs because otherwise it's cruel. And so that has to happen in this setting too. We all have to decide that like underpaid workers isn't cool, yeah?
Yeah.
Free range clothing. Trademark, you heard it here first.
Mate, I don't know. I think fast fashion is here to stay for a long time.
For sure. Because like you said, we treat luxury fashion like fast fashion. So it's not going anywhere because we're almost just yeah.
Wow. Yeah, really interesting about
Who do you think's next?
Oh, who do I think is next? What about like House of CB? Now they're not like fast fashion, but I haven't heard a lot about them in a while. Yeah. And I knew they did this big push.
Does Lipsy still exist?
Huh?
Lipsy.
Yes,
do they?
Yeah, they do. They're still in the high street.
Okay. How? You know?
Some brands are just like cockroaches in It's like Ann Summers.
That's still going.
There are some people who love a bit of Ann Summers. It's like, oh yeah, I don't know.
The Senza, that went.
Huh?
The Senza, that went. Right?
Yeah. And
Pathetus own that.
I don't. What?
Like the dragon. I'm sure Theo Pathetus owned La Senza.
Probably. Because he was the textile guy, wasn't he?
But I think that's the difference. Is like it also depends who owns stuff, right? To know if like the financial backing is there for this stuff, or they've got the in to be able to rescue it in the first place.
That's true, and it is down to their business practices as an individual company to see if they're going to survive or not. Asos could be next.
I hope not. Where else are we going to shop?
No, but in all honesty,
they're not doing well. So.
Zalando has risen as Europe's biggest. I think they've outpaced ASOS, to be honest, and I think they have a lot more brands on there. I could be wrong, but from what I can tell, Zalando has had like this meteoric rise in the past 5 years, and yes.
So should that maybe be our poll? Our listeners should predict who's next.
It's a good poll. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I think we're going to see more come out in terms of fast fashion this year. Will our attitudes towards it change? Will it affect its financial? Are we going to see just a lot of companies that we thought were doing well actually suffer because of like the rising cost of living at the moment? People aren't going to be spending their money like that.
That affects them too, right? That means that their warehouse, that goes up if they're paying rent or if they don't own it, which I doubt many people do.
No.
That means that factory workers, the wage is going to go up. Like it all goes up, but we all still want to buy a dress for £5.
We might see a really big Missguided sale. Remember when you had that 1 penny sale? Was that Missguided or was that Boohoo?
That was Boohoo. It might be Missguided. Missguided for sure was like up there.
Yeah. Well, I do have a holiday soon, so
fingers crossed for the penny sale.
Yeah, spend £1 on like 10 items and none of them fit properly.
Well, the crotch is missing. Oh god.
Anyway, that will be our poll for this week.
That's our poll.
Well, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Style Over Substance, guys.
Don't forget to check out our Instagram or Spotify to respond to this week's poll.
Bye.
Bye.